Boom. Welcome to episode 8 of the Total Pile podcast. I'm Tyler Courtney. This is Brock Davis, and we're back from New
Hello, hello.
Orleans. We're back. Brock, say hello.
Hello, hello, hello.
I always sound so aggressive when I tell you to do that. I feel like that. Just like I felt aggressive when I said that, and I apologize. But anyways, we're back. What a long weekend. If you could tell, I'm post event sick for sure. Like either it's my son got it to me on Tuesday or Monday when I got in at like 6 a.m. or whatever. But I'm definitely sick, so sorry for that. Brock, you're back. You seem healthy. How you doing? How you
Yeah,
been?
I'm good. Tired.
And yeah, that is an understatement for sure. Um, so let's go over the personal stuff real fast. How was New Orleans? What'd you do? What'd you see? Because we were
It
very
was good.
separate for most of it.
Yeah.
Too many people.
Well, so basically, main reason we were separate is because one, you brought your wife, and it was dope that you brought your wife and your sister.
Dude, thank God they
But
came. They were sick.
it was awesome. But that and the fact that I missed my invite, by one, just not playing the greatest, and two, just kind of didn't want to really be around a ton of people except like the people I traveled with. So we just kind of did our own thing, and even like some other friends were like, "Yeah, wish I could have seen you more." But that's a flaw of mine, but it'd be like that.
It's all good, dude. I get it. I'd be upset too. Um, and we'll get into that here in a little bit. But do anything cool or fun outside of the Pokemon tournament? I know you didn't do a whole ton, but any personal highlights in a positive note before we get into the negative stuff?
Um, well, we of course went to Cafe Du Monde to get beignets.
Dang, you
And
waited in line for
then
that?
after that, no, were they sat us immediately?
Oh, that's crazy. Okay, that's pretty sick, actually. They were everywhere. If you didn't know, if you ever been to New Orleans, they were actually everywhere. I found like beignets like every other block. Someone had them. Anyways, um, so yeah, there was beignets literally everywhere. I don't even remember what the place was. It was like it
Yeah,
wasn't the big named one. We didn't do that, but
yeah. You,
um,
you didn't want to wait in line.
no, I assumed the worst. You know what I mean. Like I literally assumed the worst. So we literally found
So there was
one
like
up
two
like
of them.
Jackson
It was like,
Square. I
I
could
got you.
I couldn't tell you what it's called. My wife would know instantly if what it was
Yeah,
called. They have
I was
pictures
about
of
to say
everything.
it was it was we so there was like so the biggest thing that people were saying was like that they had to wait forever. So the line that you saw that was wrapped around the building, that one was just for the to-go orders.
Oh, maybe. Oh, I guess that makes sense too, huh?
Yeah.
That does make sense.
Yep.
Um, that makes sense. Yeah. Um, sorry as I cough my lung up. Um, no, we actually, me, my wife, and my sister, they didn't participate in the event. They kind of got just spectator passes and stopped by every now and then. Um, but they got to see a lot more New Orleans than I did. But we still went and did a lot. We went to Jackson Square, walked the riverfront. Obviously, as someone who lived in Memphis for a time period, the Mississippi River is not the coolest thing in the world to me anymore. But like, it's still very cool to be just near water again. We just have lakes here, so like that's cool. Um, and then we went to a bunch of different local places, bunch of different food. Oh man, the food was incredible. I paid $30 for a redfish. That was disgusting. I mean, like the food itself was great, but like I didn't think it'd be $30 for like catch of the day fish. That was a very common trend. I didn't realize how expensive in just general New Orleans is as a whole. But it was super fun. Like we obviously
Yeah.
planned for a decent budget and whatnot, so like, there were not any financial stress from taking this trip. But like I was like, dang, $30 for a fried fish and some sweet potatoes. Like what are we doing here? Like, come on. But it was a great time. Obviously, a great time. We went to Bourbon Street on Friday night, and if you've been on Twitter, There, I don't know if it's a viral picture, but I think it's kind of funny. Some people were playing standard on the ground. Did you see this on Bourbon Street?
Yes.
I died when I saw that because that just fits the bill of Bourbon Street. I think it was on Saturday night. Someone did that. I never saw it in person, but shout out to the Omaha and Kansas City people we went out with
It was
on
Friday night.
Friday night. Yeah, we were rolling like 7 people deep plus my wife and sister, or maybe it was 7 total. Either way, my wife was like, "I didn't think people who played card games were this fun." I was like, "Yeah, dude, we're just normal people. That's fine. Don't judge us. Like, it's totally cool. We're just normal people who like to do things." I crack myself up every time because she had a whole different view on what this was going to be like, and it was basically the exact opposite, which makes me proud to be a part of such a welcoming and fun community. All right, let's get into the cards itself,
Yeah.
though. Let's just hop right into it. All right, we both finished above 800 in the total final rankings. I think you were 812 and I was like 834 or something like that. I know we were like 20 places off of each other, but we both got top 1024, which is like
Yeah.
the second highest. That's the most points I've gotten from one event this season, which is pretty sick. Um, let's go over a little bit. You went 4, 3, and 2. Could have been a little bit better, but you didn't show up to your last round. And that's okay. I get it. You did it the much more stressful way than I did. So we'll let you dive into it first.
Which was
Well, you were in it until like the last 2 rounds.
yeah. Yeah. So started the day off. I played against Alugia.
Wait, what'd you play?
And basically the
What deck
guy
did you play?
I played Gardevoir. I'm pretty I
Look
played
at the
Gardevoir.
important details, my guy.
It was a pretty standard list. We did end up adding a Mimikyu. We cut the second dark for a Mimikyu. Which was not the greatest choice, but it is what it is. So played a Lugia round 1 and he very much so I lost game 1. I lost game 1, like a very long game 1 that I was never really out of. So I could never really scoop the game, even though there were a couple points where I should have scooped, but it was. And then round 2, I played against another Lugia player, and I literally just had the hammer kill, Archeops kill, just had it all every game. And then round 3, I played against William Azevedo. For those who don't know, that is the guy who invented Arvinzard.
Yeah, he's a part of
So
that big
played
testing
against
group in
him.
Brazil.
Yes, super nice guy. First off, I have nothing negative to say about him. But I
He also
thoroughly
won a
got my
regional
butt
this year.
Yeah, he's ranked number 3 in the world. So very nice player, very very talented player. Learned a lot from playing against him. Like some of the just watching him play, I learned a lot. So I lost that round. I tilted because I just did not play very well against him. And then I played the following round. So at that point I was 1-1-1. Following round I played against a Guardy Mirror, and I beat him 2-0 very very easily. He kind of dead drew, but it was never really a contest. And then the next round, I played against Lost Box. I started Fluttermane, both games, going second. And it was very quick. Then the following round after that, what would that make me? That would make me 3.
I think you're
Yeah,
3,
okay.
1, and 2.
So the next round, I played against 3-1. No, 3-1-1 at that point.
Yeah.
I played the next round. I played against Raging Bolt. Game 1, I won a very long game 1. Game 2, I should have scooped earlier because I just started really bad. And then game 3, it came to turns, and he at the very end of the game he wanted a gentleman's agreement based off of board state, and I basically told him, I was like, hey, there's no fair way of deciding this because you would go on the prize lead here, but then I would win the following turn with a 4 prize turn. And then he was like, what do you mean? And then I tried to explain it to him, and he didn't understand it. So I said, there's no fair way to gentlemen's this. Now, if we talked about it, then maybe, but so I took the tie against Raging Bolt, which sucked, but it is what it is. So I was 3-1-2, and then the following round I played against another Gardemir, and I played a 40-minute game 1 that I won, and then game 2 happened, and he couldn't take the last prize card. So going into round 8, I played against Chen Pao. That played 4 rare candies, Eileen, and 4 superior energy retrievals, along with 2 energy retrievals. So he had plenty of energy the entire game, and just I couldn't do anything. And then we played 2 long games, like 2 25-minute plus games each time, and he wanted a gentleman's going into game 3, and I knew I was going to lose, but I had to win to move on, and a tie did me nothing, so I said sure. And I basically tied the prize race, and he was able to go double normal energy retrieval, superior energy retrieval to kill my big guardie. So, sucks, but that's where my round ended. Actually, my round 9, I would have played against one of my friends, Jalen Jones. But I didn't show up to that round because I needed top 64 to make Worlds. So I just didn't go. I got some food. Yeah.
Yeah, and like that happens. Like it's unfortunate kind of how it went down. Like there's definitely like parts of our games that we could have both played better. Like and I'll go over that here in a second. But like tough result sometimes. Like that's the way it is. Brock's run's a lot more stressful than mine because you were in it until round 8. You were in contention. I was out of day to contention after round 5. So I beat a Lost Box Tina round 1. I'm playing Lost Box Dragapult. And I decided on that, which is crazy to think because like both the groups I was talking to and playing with, one played Miraidon, one played Gardevoir. And I wasn't confident in my Gardevoir play. And I hated the Raging Bolt Teal Mask Ogerpon matchup. And I thought, I mean, predicted correctly, obviously. Like with day 1 meta, we'll go over here in a little bit. But it was 15% of day 1. Was not in my favor. I wasn't good enough with Miraidon to sequence it correctly to give me a chance in that game. But I had been grinding just every single Dragapult version known to man. That's all I've been doing since the release of the game. I've streamed all my tournaments online and whatnot. And it was just the best call for me, right? Like that's just the way it went. And I believe I could have qualified for day 2 if I just played better or practiced more. One or the 2 scenarios. So like we'll go over round 1. I beat a Lost Box Giratina 2-0, super simple, nothing crazy. After the whole Mardi Gras band thing, which that was so distracting, by the way. It's like we're about to start round 1. Everyone's in their chairs, and this just giant band just walks in, just running around the entire convention center. I'm like, bro, why wouldn't we do this at 8 o'clock when the doors open? Like, why are we not doing that? Anyways, so I beat Lost Box Giratina, and then this is where my predictions come to bite me, because I said this on this pod, I think, but I said I would lose to a Regidrago V-Star if I played against it. And I did. I did lose to a Regidrago V-Star who out Dragapulted me going first. So they went first both games. I won the coin flip. Obviously, I'm Lost Box, so I want to go second. I'm not playing a bunch of vacuums already. I'm playing just the one vacuum, so it's not very turbo. I have to rely on Colress. Anyway, so Reggie Drago just blows the brakes off me. And I'll be honest with you, I totally forgot what the V Star did. I was hyping up the deck a lot. I did. I like the deck. The Zoroark box of the deck, super cool. But the V Star power is absolutely broken for that deck to work with Teal Mask. So he literally did this twice. He Cypher Maniac'd the Pokemon he wanted to discard on top. He would use his V-Star ability to discard 7 cards from the top of his deck and then pick 2 to put back into his hand. So he didn't need anything specifically. It was just to dump half the cards of his deck or whatever into the discard pile and then pick the missing pieces he didn't have, which was crazy. Good news to say is that player did day 2 with the deck. The reason why I said I could have got a better result out of it, there was a turn in game 2 where I knew time wasn't a friend of mine, and so I'm playing quickly. I have Cramorant in hand, I buddy Puff, and I start cycling. I get to 4 in the Lost Zone turn 2. Or I guess my first turn of the game. He's got Teal Mask Ogerpon in the active. I retreat, and I announce retreat before benching Cramorant. And so I missed the spit innocently because I didn't have Switch card in hand. I already had energy attached. I was set to go. And I missed the spit. And because of that spit, I missed the 4-price turn later in the game. It was turns of time. He's turn 0. I could have gotten the last 4 prize cards on my turn if I would have spitted. Because at some point in the game, I put all 6 damage counters on that Teal Mask Ogerpon because there wasn't a better option on the bench. Right? And so I literally could have tied the game if I just spit on turn 1. So that felt bad, but 1-on-1's not a terrible going into it. Round 2, I played somebody... I can't remember where they're from. I know they're from California, but they had a different country listed on their thing, on their Arcanine Player Labs. But they were playing Turbo Lost Box. I beat them in 2 games, basically just kind of a mid-off type of thing. You can't Iron Hands a Dragapult EX, super difficult, right? Makes sense. Round 4, I lose to Giratina with hands. I don't know if you remember the Tord build from, I guess it was EUIC or a regional before that, where you played the 1-1. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. It was mostly Giratina, and then he also played a 1 of hands with a couple lightning energies, which is crazy. So I lose that 2-2, and then I lose to Miraidon round 5. So I'm out of day 2 at that point. Miraidon just blows the brakes off of me. I'm like, dang, bro, that's just the way it goes. Like, I beat him game 1, super early, donked. He scoops. Game 2, he donks me. Game 3, he donks me. That's just, it was so quick. It was just out of nowhere, gone. Just blown the brakes off. And so my tournament was over before even seeing anything on the meta chart, which is crazy to think about. I guess if you consider Lost Box Tina on there, then that kind of counts. But every deck I played in day 1, besides the last 4 rounds, so we'll get to that in a second, but was below a 9% of the meta share. And so that's my biggest takeaway from this event, is that you don't need to meta game for anything. Just make sure you're confident in every matchup, right? Like, if you pick a deck that's solid into everything, you got a chance. Because, like, I played 3 Lost Box and a Miraidon and a Reggie Drago V-Star in 5 rounds, and my day 2 potential was over before I even saw the majority of the meta, which is crazy. Last few rounds, I beat a Lugia, and then I tied 2 Lugia. But this is like end of the day. I ended up playing all 9 rounds. I didn't want to drop. I tied 2 Lugia who were just like half awake, bro. We're talking like playing so slow, like they forgot they had to shuffle. Like, I don't know what it was. Overall, good people, it seems like, but they were just like so drained from the day, which like is normal. Like 9 hours of Pokemon is a lot. But like it was just like simple stuff that you get kind of loose with it. Locals are just like, oh well, whatever, it happens. And then I beat a Chen Pao, And oh god, what was my last one? I beat Chimpao, tied to Lugia, and I beat a Lugia. Is that 9? Yeah, 5 plus 4. Yeah, I played 3 Lugia in the last 4 rounds, which is crazy. Didn't see a single one in the first 5 rounds, but I saw them all at the mid tables, which is where we end up. And like we just ended up at 830, whatever it was, 834. So overall, super fun event. Um, I would run it back, maybe change the list a little bit after seeing some of the other Lost Zone box Dragapults that made day 2. I think the top one was like 120th or something like that. But Lost Box Dragapult is a lot of fun. And it's gonna be either sleeved up near me at all times, or so it's a good deck to fall back on, especially if I change a couple cards. But overall, super fun event.
Gardevoir Gardevoir was higher than I thought. Can you hear me?
Yeah, your Gardevoir was higher than you thought. Yeah, the 14% is nuts. It was 14.9% or 14.1%
Gardevoir
Gardevoir.
was, yeah.
Raging Bolt
I
was
thought it would be,
14.98 and Lugia was 17.9.
yeah.
It was very triangle meta like.
Besides that, it was pretty much what I expected.
Yeah, the Gardevoir was a lot higher than a lot of people thought. And then I'm even shocked Maridon was that high. Maridon made the graphic. It was 5.34%. Dragapult barely ahead of it at 5.68%, which is crazy. And that number is skewed because a lot of decks that played Dragapult were not classified as Dragapult, specifically Tord, which we'll talk about in day 2. Or even the Regidragos, right? Like they play a Dragapult. Like he only used Lost Phantom on me or Phantom Dive on me. Um, yeah, I think the one thing that stands out from day 1, day 2, I did have a buddy Drew make day 2 with Maridon, which seems like an incredible call for this event. He swamped Lugia day 2. Yeah, I think he beat 4 Lugias in day 2 after going 6-2-1. And then I don't remember how many he played day 1 or if he even saw a Gardevoir or not. But he was just handsing all day. He's been grinding that deck. I think he played 2 Zapdos. Yeah, he played the 2 Zapdos from Go to help the Raging Bolt matchup, so you could hit 240 with him right on. And then he also played the Blood Moon Ursaluna to hit 240 as well. So it wasn't unfavorable, but definitely not great. Definitely not a great matchup into the Ogre Pond. I'm not sure how many he saw. Oh, also that's the thing we did too, is the name of the deck is now Shreks and Necks. Shout out James from Nebraska. I did Shreks and Necks. Is the new name of Raging Bolt Ogre Pond. So if you hear me and get confused, it's Shreks and Necks. You can make t-shirts if you want. Let's hop into day 2 because it's more fun to talk about. There's so much to talk about in day 2. And we can start with the winner, with Andrew Hedrick taking it all. That's his second win this year. He won Indy and now NAIC. Man, what a final. Obviously, I think you stayed in New Orleans to watch it. Let's hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, it was probably the best finals I've watched since coming back to the game. The fact that, like, so everyone around me, and I was sitting around a bunch of like the pro players, they were all talking about how game 1 Hedrick should have scooped like turn 2. And the whole time I'm thinking to myself, I was like, no, he probably is unfavorable in this matchup, so he needs to try to steal this game or steal the next game and then make it go to sudden death, which is exactly what ended up happening. But the fact that the game came down to, and Ivanov didn't play the best. That was the thing.
Very true. There's misplays on that for sure.
There was a turn where he shouldn't have benched Manaphy. If he would have just benched Cresselia instead of benching that Manaphy, I think he just wins that game.
Or even just not benching anything at all. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't
Well,
need...
that too, but he needed. Yeah, it was. Anyways, so there was that, and the fact that it came down to a coin flip off of confusion
Yep.
to win,
The Monkey Dory
it
attack
was
that
crazy.
auto confuses, which is crazy to say that he even attacked with Monkey Dory in general. How many times did you talk about the Monkey Dory this weekend?
0.
Zero. Yeah, fat zero. And then the biggest game of the weekend came down to
It was game 3.
it was game one,
The fact that like,
right?
well, no,
It
yes,
was game
but
one, the confusion flip.
yes, but game 3, yeah, game 3 came down to he needed Prime to win the game, or Ivanov won the game.
I think he had more outs than that. He needed, it was like he could get
No,
energy
well,
or
so
prime
yes,
or counter. He had
no,
multiple
it
outs in
wasn't. It
deck.
wasn't. So he had it, but how he sequenced it, his only out was Prime or Boss.
Correct, but like
Because
at the start of the turn, he had multiple outs though.
so yes, well, yeah, well, so the fact that he did bundle first, yes, his only out was that.
Yeah, the bundle first seemed weird to me, but either way, he still won. Like,
It
props to him.
was
Like,
weird. Well, because he could have like just done vacuum and vacuumed off, and then he had the gate to gate off the energy. Anyways, there was some plays that I ran that game back a couple times. Seemed weird, but it worked out, so can't really say none.
yeah, for sure.
So the fact that the game ended on Comfy Prime game, it was awesome. It was
Yeah,
really
like,
cool.
and just for clarification, I think if I remember correctly, it was Greninja the attack, right? He prime catchered the Clef Key
Yeah,
to turn off the mana fee, double snipe for the last two prize cards, and I even offset one
he
prize
he
card.
could have just hit the bench. He could have just hit the bench or just hit the active. But yes,
I have to watch it back now that you
if
say
he would
that.
have
I
just hit
think
the
he had
active, he
two prize
wins.
cards left
No,
because
he
he
had
because
4, but he had to be one ahead of Ivanov.
oh,
It
you're
didn't
right.
matter.
Yeah, because he was at 3. It
Yeah.
was tied
So
to
they
death
were
rules.
tied. They were
Yeah,
tied at 2, and Stefan put the Guardian the active because it was the hardest thing to kill.
right. I remember now. I gotta watch it back to be more for sure. Absolutely crazy game 3. But like, if anyone remembers the Worlds final from last year, how Vance won in overtime, very similar to this because you have to have a winner and there has to be a time limit, or else we'll be there for 3 or 4 hours watching the Masters finals. Like, we're just not gonna do that. But um, crazy finals. The day 2 meta was vastly different overall. But shout out to Andrew and Stefan Ivanov for making it to the finals. Stefan playing the Gardevoir, if you didn't notice from us talking about Monkey Dories and Manaphies and Gardevoirs and stuff, was 21% of the meta, which is crazy. Like, that's nuts. For it to go from 14% or what, 14 point whatever to 21% of the meta, the next highest is 15% in Lugia. Making it is absolutely absurd. That conversion rate's nuts at that big of a tournament. There was 2,600 players at day 1, and then was it 62 of the Gardevoirs converted over, which is nuts. Couple things stood out overall in the meta. We talked about the Regidrago V-Star. That deck's insane. Multiple lists. Highest placing one was 14th, which is insane. It's not the same. Is it the same list that I lost to? I didn't even look. It is not. Can't be that much different though. That's all good. And then Tord is one of the bigger talking points of this entire thing. He brought another Tord box, which was Charizard EX with Dragapult, with Pidgeot, with Bibarel, with Cleffa, and Lumineon. And obviously Radzard. This deck is crazy. Still has the 7 energies in there, playing the reset stamp, which I'm not shocked to hear based on how he talks about reset stamp. I talked to Tord for a little bit on day 1, and he didn't tell me anything about his lists. I just kind of told him, hey, I'm excited to see it. I heard you're playing Dragapult with Charizard. can you confirm? And he was like, yeah, I'm glad you're a fan. I am doing that. That is true. I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. This list seems so crazy. And just I'm looking at it now as well. He still plays the Evo, plays the counter catchers. Any list that you want to talk about in day 2 as well? There's a couple more that I wanted to touch on. Is there anything specific that you wanted to touch on with Gardevoir, especially with how you played it compared to somebody else? Like there were 6 in the top 8, 3 of them being Australian, or 2 Australian.
2 and then
Brent was 9th. Yeah, it threw me off on the
So I think the biggest thing that like I took away from is like this testing group was 3 of the top 9. Like to me, that's crazy.
Yeah,
there was a singular deck that was that. Shout out to the Australians.
Yeah, all ran the exact 60.
Yeah, I mean this is what every testing group wants to be at one time. It's just like buy into a 60 and just everyone does it. They played a team. This was in a couple of the lists, top 8 lists. They played the TM Devo to like help with the Charizard numbers.
Yeah. They cut an Evo basically.
No, they still played 2 Evos.
Oh, did they? Am I looking at the wrong list?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh my God, they did. That's crazy. I'm looking at the wrong list.
So So they cut a Turo, which is the biggest thing that I can see, and they're not playing. And they also cut the thing that like everyone that did well with Gardevoir did was they cut 1 Psychic. Like every single list that I've seen is only playing 7 Psychics.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. I was doing the math later, like after I saw all these lists, and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because the 8 Psychic was based off the Heroes Cape lists. That was
yes and no.
Yeah, with the before pre-Monkey Dory.
Yeah, pre-Monkey Dory, everybody was playing that. Or you were playing 9 pre-Monkey Dory. So
yeah.
But yeah, so that's the biggest thing that I saw was like the Devo to kind of help with the Charizard, which makes sense because you just spread a bunch of damage and then you kill both. Either Pidgeots or you try to set up like
anything that evolves, right? The Devo is even good against Chien-Pao, right? If they use both for candies.
Yeah, I think that's your biggest out against GN.
And then even against Dragapults, right? Either version of Dragapults, you can get 90 on a Dragapult very easily with whatever 1 prizer, and then just Devo it down so your Cloak's knocked out. Or Dreepy, whatever, if they use for candy or not. Like, Devo's just a good card. And a lot of it, like, a lot of hype around Devo died really early into this format, online and in paper cards. You know what I mean? Like, Devo was not discussed by anybody that I knew, like, ever. I think the one thing that stands out to me, too, and, like, this is really shout-outs to Stefan Ivanov, I think he's the only one playing the Klefki, which made it so hard for Andrew in the final. He actually beat Gantner, right? Before. It's basically the 59 card mirror with the Klefki. Like the Klefki makes so much sense looking at it. And I'm trying to see if anybody else played it. Did Henry Chow play it? No, he did not. I thought I just saw one. The 5th place listed. Yeah. Sebastian Lashment played the Klefki. Did you didn't play Klefki, right?
I did not. It was in talks. It would have been much better than the Mimikyu. Because the reason we played it is because it would buy us a turn against Miraidon, which Klefki technically does the same thing. It might even buy us more than 1 turn against Miraidon.
Yeah, as long as you start it.
Or get it out, because they want to go second. Like, that's the thing. So you prioritize getting it out.
As long as you end turn 1 with Klefki active, then you're pretty good.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is not hard to do. So it was in talks, and that should have been what we played instead of the Mimikyu, but we didn't end there. I'm not the biggest fan of the Klefki, even now that thinking about it, because it turns off your own mana fee, so they can just go in the Lost Box matchup once they get fully set up. If they get fully set up, but I think They just go prime catcher up the Klefki, kill 2 off the bench, and you lose that way.
Yeah, very similar to
they
what
basically go
Andrew did.
very, very similar, yes. And it's one of those things where I think you just have to accept that. If you play that. Also, I feel like if you're playing like the Klefki build, the Hyperoma is correct because it just allows you to play that slower game. So yeah.
Yeah. I think Ivanov was the only one playing the Hyper Aroma. Am I right saying that?
No, there was one other one that played it.
Is it probably the same
think,
guy, the Sebastian guy?
Yeah, I think Sebastian also.
No, Sebastian played Fair Stamp. I'm looking at it right now. Either way, I think so. I think you're right though. I think somebody else played Hyper Aroma. Super cool idea. Also Klefki, I think is auto wins your Raging Bolt matchup, even though you're already favored into it, right? Like if you play the Klefki, like you go first.
It's not as good as you think. Like, yes, it's very good
because
but
they
you
have
still
the
to
Sandy
play
shocks,
well
I
to
guess,
beat it.
technically, right? But
Yeah, yes, but that's not. So it's just a hard matchup, or can be a hard matchup.
yeah, it's tough for them.
Not hard, but it can be weird.
Very true. Only one or has two Snorlax stalls in the top 32. If I'm scrolling here, one made 36. Yeah, so two in the top 32. A lot of big names in this top 32, and it shows, man. Like it's just one of those things. Just playing a good deck and going with it. Couple surprises from the events. I don't know if you have any. I have two. Well, I guess it's three. So we already talked about Tord. And very similar to Tord's lists was Michael Pramelot's, which I've been playing nonstop now, and it's so much fun. But Michael Pramelot finished, I want to say it was like 38th. I found it right here. He's playing Dragapult Pidgeot with a 1/1 Charizard EX. And the reason why this is good, it's basically the replacement for Mela, but also helps your Raging Bolt matchup because it's just easier to hit 240 with Charizard. And if they take the time to snipe your Charmander, that helps you prize trade for the 4 prize turn for a game, right? So it's a win-win scenario, but it is playing the Cleffa. It is playing the 3/2/3 Dragapult line, and you do have to play Neo Upper Energy. There's just no way around it if you're playing this type of build. Tord played Stamp, but that was also a heavier Charizard build. Like you were maybe attacking with Dragapult once. This is attacking with Dragapult twice or 3 times, and then attacking with Charizard once. And it's a very, very cool list. I like this list a ton. I played it. I was going to play it today in the late night EU time. Started off 1 and 2, but I had to do some family stuff today. Kids woke up early from a nap, so I didn't get the long enough window I needed to try to see it through. But it's a super fun list. I actually beat Gardevoir with it in round 2, and then I lost to a Lost Box who lost mine me turn 2. It's the most disgusting thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Very irrelevant to our conversation right now, but literally he went first, flower selecting 3 times, and then got 7 more in the loss on his turn 2 and just lost mine me. Just called it a day. That was fun. I think the biggest shock for me after those two was the Ancient box that showed up a couple times. There wasn't a lot of them, but Andrew Kennett played it. Zach Lesage played it. There's a few of them here in day 2. And single prizers are just good in this format. It's annoying to deal with. I think their only bad matchup technically would probably be Charizard. Or not Charizard, Dragapult. Other than that, though, it's really annoying to deal with a bunch of
Charizard is bad.
I over it because you're doing the 180, one tick, one knockout. They're doing 210, so Charizard would be just bad in general as well. I know of at least 3 that made day 2 off the top of my head. There might be more. I think one of them played the Walking Wakes and one didn't. I can't remember now.
Andrew Kennett played Walking.
Yeah, Kennett played Walking Wake, no energy or water energy, which you're not supposed to play water energy. For those of you wondering, you're not supposed to play water energy. The idea is it's easier to start a Walking Wake and retreat it than starting a Koraidon, right? That's just kind of the basis of it. It's very similar to the Scream Tail prior to Twilight Masquerade
Yes.
being released. The second and third surprise for me is the full grip / tag team group played Goldango, which is crazy. We talked about it on day 3 a lot when one of our friends was playing it for fun with you at the end of it, and the numbers just make sense now. For whatever reason, slightly different. Goldango's just makes sense. Is because like there's not a lot of heroes cape. You're not reliant on a Excalibur on your bench. They're playing. I saw a list. I think the full grip group played the 1/1 Barrel. There's another one. I think Pedro Hernandez played the. I'm looking at it now. Yeah, played the Reva Room. So both do the exact same job, right? And it's one of those things where it's just like I can't wait to play that deck now. Like it's just like I have no idea if it's actually good or not. It's good enough for day 2, and I'm not good enough for day 2 at this very moment in time. So like why not give it a chance? Still playing the Palkia, still playing the Greninja. Like you have the ability to snipe 2 things for fun. Super cool list. And then the last surprise was, where did I see it? Goldango, Pram, Tord. Where'd it go? Ross Cawthon, the genius that he is, played Quad Thorns, which isn't really relevant for the day 2 discussion, but was the talk of the town day 1. There was a Quad Thorns, I want to say it was like 7-1-1, right? Do you remember this?
No.
There's a Quad Thorns list out there.
I've
Ross is
never
the.
heard.
You never saw it?
I never saw it.
Where do
All
you-
I was hearing is that there was a bunch of lost boxes.
Yeah, a ton of lost box. That is very, very evident. Where do you go? Ross finished the highest placing one. There was 3 in day 2. But yeah, it was just straight Quad Thorns. 8 lightnings, 4 double turbo, 1 legacy energy. Imagine trying to hit like not having a hammer and you just can't get around a Thorns. Like that's just crazy. They played 4 lost cities. Like it was it's a wild list. Very up to par for a Ross Cawthon deck. Obviously Ross Cawthon's the truth guy from a few years, like a while back ago now at this point. He also put Roaring Moon on the map prior to rotation. Finished, I think, second or whatever it was at Portland or Vancouver or whatever regional that was. But very great deck builder. Played Quad Thorns on NAIC and did very well with it, finishing 80th. Super cool list. Super cool list. We can get into that kind of the nitty gritty now that we talked about the more fun stuff. We could talk about the decline of Lugia. There was none. It seemed like very popular in day 2. Obviously, we talked about it dipping very, very hard in the charts, going from almost 20% down to 15, almost 16 if you count the percentages. I could struggle to figure out why Lugia always does this every new rotation, but it just gets like one extra special energy, and then it's just like, hey, we're gonna run it back. And they were there, they were evident. Like I said, I tied 2, I beat 1, and it's just one of those decks where people just love playing Lugia, and it makes me upset. Like we should just not do that.
Yeah, it's one of those effects where I think everyone that came, because we had a massive influx when Lugia was the deck. So I think it's a lot of people trying to reignite like the love that they had for that Lugia. So like every time we get a new energy, they try to force it.
Yeah, that's just the way it is sometimes with popular decks like that. I mean, at one point it was like 30% of the meta every weekend. Heck, Andrew Hendrick made his name off of winning back-to-back regionals with Lugia, right? So,
Yep.
crazy stuff there. we talked about lost box a lot. There's 43 lost box in day two at 15% of the meta. It skyrocketed from almost 9% to almost 15%, which is crazy. But I mean, we're seeing it. Lots of good players who are good at lost box gravitate just towards lost box, and obviously Hendrick's list is very standard. The only thing that's different about it is he played a one of Thorns instead of playing the Roaring Moon. Everything else is very turbo lost box. And a lot of lists did play the Roaring Moon, but that's just ended up how it went for Hendrick. The last main one we can talk about, or I guess two, if we want to talk about Chen Pao, but Raging Bolt. It lived up to the hype, in my opinion. It did fairly well compared to, the influx. I don't know how you want to word this. It was definitely a 50-50. You either loved Shreks and Nex or you hated it, right? And it seemed to fit the bill. Like, it ended day two at 12%. Not the greatest conversion rate, but it only went down 2.5-3%. Like, it fit the mold of a big basic turbo-y type of I'm gonna knock you out with whatever I got type of deck. And it did well. I mean, I'm kind of shocked that it stayed that high going into day two.
A deck like that, just like I'm on the verse where I don't think it's that great of a deck. And like, yes, it did perform, but also at the same time, it's like it was the height deck, so we all knew that it was gonna be vastly overpopular almost.
Yeah.
So,
I'm shocked by
it didn't
how many
surprise me when I
converted.
saw as many people play it as they did.
Yeah, day one is fully expected,
Um,
right? I'm surprised on how many converted. Like, how many good players made
The-
day two with Shreks and Nex.
I think it was just the law of numbers. There was enough people there playing the deck that there was enough people that hit good runs,
Right.
which then allowed it to be carried over to like decent finishes overall.
Yeah, for sure. Didn't realize this, but shout out to Noah Yoshida. I actually grew up with this kid. I saw him a little bit Thursday night at my buddy's hotel from Omaha and talked to him for a while. He actually moved to California. He's from my hometown league, is how you could call it. It's crazy to see him after all these years. Very similar to how I saw you at Peoria. I was like, bro, like, how are you? Like, I was like, hey, are you Noah Yoshida? Not to like just be weird about it. Like, hey, is this you? If it's not, like, come back at me or whatever. Sure enough, like, I remember playing this kid as a senior and junior in 2008. Like, it's the craziest thing. But he made day two and finished 113th with Shreks and Nex as well. But that was, I think he hasn't played much this season, to be honest. That I'm aware of, based on me talking to him. Yeah, man, Shreks and Nex was super cool. The last main series deck, I mean, I don't think we want to talk about control because I hate control. But Chen Pao, there is still the Chen Pao heads out there, right? Jared Grimes played it. Nicholas Boffett finished 17 with the deck. They were there. I mean, they definitely played the 170 HP Friggy and just kept the other 59 cards the same.
Yeah,
One,
it
two,
didn't really surprise me.
9 in day two. Am I reading that right? No, I'm way off.
1, 2, 3,
10 in day two.
4,
10 in day
5,
two.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, 10. With Dylan Gunn and Nicholas Moffat doing the best out of all of them. The deck, and it didn't surprise me that the deck survives, because Dragapult wasn't nearly as bad of a matchup as we all thought it was.
Yes and no, right? Like, I'm obviously, I'm not. This is just based off this stream game with Pram a lot. In paper and in theory, right? The 170, especially if Chin Pao goes first, like, you're set.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna, most of the time, you're going to find the one rare candy to get your 60 HP Frigibacks up, and then you can just leave your 71 on the bench until you find the second and third pieces to get your second Excalibur up. And we mentioned this pre-NAIC, if people saw it. The only time it was super unwinnable for Chin Pao is if you could boss and they didn't evolve the 60 HP Frigi. And that's basically what happened in the Pramelot Jared Grimes series. They played day one. I want to say it was round 3 or 4. Pramelot Ionoed him to, I think it was 2. Knocked out Greninja in the active, sniped the barrel on the bench for knockout. So it was the second snipe with Dragapult, and then knocked out the lone Excalibur in play, and plus the Iono to 2 or 3 or whatever it was. Couldn't recover. Or he had lone Radzard in the active as well, so he couldn't. And if I think I'm saying that right. That sounds so confusing after I review that in my head. So previously turn, Dragapult knocks out a barrel, Excalibur. Gets second Excalibur up.
Yes.
And then Radzard knocks out the only Excalibur in play. He promotes Greninja after an Iono to 2. There we go. That makes more sense. Now we're clear. Whew. Gosh, got me off there for a second. But very weird sequencing, especially if they can't get a barrel in play. It's the same thing, right? Like if you can't keep the support Pokemon in play, it's gonna be tough, right? But overall, it seemed like a very good matchup into most of the meta, right? Because like Raging Bolt still needs 4 energies to knock it out without a damage modifier. Gardevoir, you just kind of play Greninjas around it, right? Lost Box Greninjas around it. Lugia is still just Lugia. They have the hands now, which makes it super tough, so you can't bench the fish at all if they play fish. Which I think every Chin Pao plays at least 1 fish. But super, super cool, right? One brief last shout out. Like, then it's just my own personal opinion. 1 Roaring Moon made day 2. 245th place. Turbo Roaring Moon. Just shout out to that guy. David Arnett. You're my hero. And that's kind of it. Anything else you want to talk about with NAIC as a whole?
Not really.
There you go. We look forward and onward to a brief discussion. There's a lot of Twitter stuff happening, a lot of post-international news happening. The one thing we're going to touch about is obviously it didn't affect us positively, but the numbers of who is qualified for the World Championships is set. And I believe if I pulled the number correctly, it's roughly 1,000 people qualified for Worlds. And why we're talking about this is because it's put Twitter in a downward spiral, saying it's too easy to qualify for Worlds, all this stuff. I watched a video from Rahul Reddy today. He doesn't really go into his thoughts on it, but he tells you the structures and invites per region, which is super informative is the right word I'm looking for. And that led to me digging a little deeper here based on the Twitter discussions here. And I would love to know Brock's thoughts on this. I'm really upset that people think it's too easy to qualify for Worlds. One, obviously, this doesn't affect Brock or I in a personal way, especially not me. Brock was a lot closer than I was. But one, it's still very difficult to qualify for Worlds. Especially quantity over quality type of scenarios. All these discussions were happening on Twitter. So if you want to see them, just type in Worlds invites or whatever qualification for Worlds on Twitter. The main thing I wanted to do is I wanted to compare the biggest tournament from the West to how many qualified for Worlds, because that's the best way to evaluate the growth of the game is how big is NAIC, which is like I mean Brock, correct me if I'm wrong here. It's always been the biggest tournament west of Japan every year.
Yes.
That in recent memory that I can think of. Right? So what I did was I pulled the day one numbers from 2018, 19, 22, 23, and 24 and compared it to how many people attended Worlds. Now, the stipulation here is we only have the number of people who attended Worlds. We have the number of people who qualify for Worlds. So I don't think all 1,000 people are going to attend this year's Worlds, if that makes sense.
It's close.
It'll be close.
Like,
I think we'll end up around 850 because it's in Hawaii. If it was somewhere else that was easier to get to, I think you're talking 900, 950. But I don't think everyone can afford the trip to Hawaii, especially if you didn't get a stipend for it. Anyways,
so a lot of if you qualify for Worlds, most people have put back enough money, or you've had money from doing well at regionals to qualify.
yeah, or even just selling stuff. Like we see it all the time on Twitter, is people selling their there's countless tweets of people selling their NAIC swag bag, which included the cool mat in the middle and the hat I'm wearing, and Brock was wearing it at the start of the episode. Tons of cool stuff in that swag bag, including the nest ball that says NAIC North America on it. I mean, you can get a good $95 out of that, probably total, and probably more if you hold on to it for a little while. But anyways, Hawaii is just hard to get to, and so I think we'll end up around 900. But just to further the argument, I made it at the 1,000 flat, so it's 2,600 people at NAIC this year is a rough estimate, and then 1,000 people for this year qualified for Worlds. Based on that number, 38% is what that equals out to. And why I'm comparing those two numbers, I did that same formula every single year because that kind of shows the demand and flux based on skill level, right? The biggest term of the year, and then how many people actually made it to Worlds, right? So if you go back, the lowest percentage was actually last year at 36%. There was 1,897 people at NAIC. Only 687 competed at Day 1 Worlds, which is crazy, right? So if we think about this every single year, and the math checks out from 18, 19, all the way to 22, 23 because of the COVID gap, we have never experienced a year over 35% besides 2022. And why 2022 is important is because people could double up on invites. It's if you qualified pre-COVID, it counted. And if you qualified post-COVID, it counted. So that was actually at 49% in 2022, and that was the London Worlds. But every single year besides that, it's 35%. And so I think the biggest thing I wanted to hit on is that the growth of the game is being matched with how many people are qualifying for Worlds. Your biggest event had almost 3,000 players. 33, 34, 35% seems like a normal number, especially now that we have China included. If you look at Rahul's video, China is now a part of the circuit. They have almost 70 invites by themselves to Worlds, which is crazy. They're still playing, I think it's tag team to Pokemon Go. They're in a crazy format right now.
They just got Go.
Which is crazy because they just got their first control deck.
They just got what's it called? They just got Fusion Strike and about to get Astral Radiance.
Yeah, which is crazy. They don't even have V-Stars yet. And like they should deserve. I'm not saying they shouldn't deserve to go. They started older. China is very new to the game of Pokemon. Which super happy they're going. And like
so essentially yeah.
No, go ahead.
Basically my thought on all of this is like as someone who's like competed all year is I don't think it was too easy or too hard this year. I felt like it was in a pretty good spot because I attended 6 regionals and I got points at 3 of them. Only day 2 once, had 3 winning ins for day 2, and only one on the table from my perspective, and I just missed Worlds.
Yeah. I think
So
that's the people where people get mad about is that you didn't have to necessarily make day 2 at every regional. I guess that's the biggest like uproar. Is
well,
that
so my personal opinion on it all is I think the gap between the international points and the regional points are just too large.
yeah? Because if you went to both
I
or all
didn't
three,
even I didn't even play my round 9 and I got 50 points. I played 15 rounds at Indianapolis. Made day 2, actually played decent in day 2, and I only got 40.
yeah, I think that's the main squeeze. And to be honest, I think what's gonna happen is they're gonna bump up the points from regionals to be closer to ICs, but then also move the goalpost of the overall
Even further
qualification.
forward.
Right. So it'd be
Yeah.
like 700 points, and then you increase regionals by, I guess, percentages wise, like 10-15%. So if you get, I think it was top, what, 128 got 20 points. Am I right in saying that?
No. No.
What's the
Top
rest?
512
Top
got 20.
512 got points, right? So like instead of it being 20 points, it'd be 30, and then slowly increase as you get closer to the top. Something like that, right? Obviously, I'm not the math guy here, but they're gonna increase the regional points, and I bet they're gonna have either less regionals because right now we had what 12 in NA this year.
I'm not sure.
I think it was 12. I think they'll go down to like 9 or something, and then make
I
them
I
bigger.
heard rumblings that we were only going to have 8.
Yeah, there's a lot of rumors. I think the biggest
I
thing
don't
is
know if that's
like
true or not.
I think they are going to downsize, which is the opposite of what we want for the game. Because right now the growth is so massive, and the only regionals that weren't capping were these last few ones this year. Like Indy didn't cap, and that was the biggest
No,
region.
there were more than that
Wait,
didn't
I
cap.
was saying there's the West Coast ones; those didn't cap.
They never
Orlando,
cap.
yeah, I understand. That's a normal trend. I'm just trying to figure out the actual ones, and then Orlando did not cap, right?
Yeah, but that wasn't due to the growth of the game. That was due to the venue. Like the
Right.
venue was yeah.
That's what I'm saying though, like because like we don't know the actual exponential growth yet,
You could have fit another 1,000 people at
and that's my
Orlando.
point too. Is like Knoxville did
Yeah.
cap, and they could have. That was such a small regional, like that's terribly small.
Mhm.
Like obviously the
Mhm.
Sacramento, Fresno, and LA, you probably could cut one of those and move it to the Midwest or back to the East Coast, and that would have capped, right? The West Coast regionals are hard because like I think
Easily.
they have four, right? If you count Vancouver, well, they had five. They had five of our 12. They had Portland, Vancouver,
Mm,
Fresno, Sacramento, and LA.
Fresno last year. Fresno was
Was
last
Fresno
year.
last year? I swear we had a Fresno this year. Either way, I think there's going to be big shakeups to the qualification system. I don't think there'll be big
They only had 3. Yes.
I don't think there's going to be big changes to the local scene though. And that's what people are trying to figure out. I think locals is in a good spot where it's not your entire invite. It's very firmly in the middle. And I think you remember what the number was, how many points you needed not from locals to make it? 150, 160,
No. It was 210.
210. So I was 50 points off. But like if that's the same gap, I think that is the perfect gap, and that's what I was trying to show with the math, right? Is that you did not actually increase the size of worlds. Worlds in the game itself has just grown, right? There's just more players. There's more people attempting to qualify for the world championships, and that is where the 1,000 people come from, right? Because like almost 100 people didn't even have Pokemon 2 years ago in China. and then the same structures and systems happen in TPC, right? And then like our structure changed. Um, I think that's the biggest thing is that I wanted to nail the hammer on is like Worlds is growing appropriately to the size of the game so far, which is super cool to see. I was scared there wasn't going to be enough people. We'll go back to last summer where it's like, oh, hey, you need 600 points, and all of them can't be from locals. Because you used to be able to just get it all from locals and call it a day. And now you can't.
There was one year like that, but other than that, no.
Yeah, and so
Nashville World you could, but every year you've had to at least like I think it's like 100 points you had to get from majors.
right, I think that's correct. And I think we're heading in the right direction, and I hope they don't mess up the invite structure to make people like to downsize the game, if that makes sense. Because if they mess up the invite structure and they make these regionals more important and more people don't go to them and we start going backwards, I think that's a real possibility depending on how the invite is structured. I think it's perfectly balanced right now. They just need some tweaking in the numbers overall points wise. Because you're right. Me going to NAIC and not doing great. I actually had a better record in Peoria. By 2 games, I think. Maybe 1 game. I received 40 more points in New Orleans for doing worse than I did in Peoria last fall, which is crazy. So I think they just need to tweak it a little bit. The other announcement related to Worlds, we've seen the theme. We've seen all that cool stuff. The Pikachu plush looks great. Got the flippers on, all that kind of snorkeling gear. But they did announce the Worlds format changes. It's not like NAIC anymore. We're talking an asymmetrical cut up to 32, if I read it correctly, which means if 8th place through 32nd place are tied on match points, then they will do an asymmetrical cut and do single elimination until they fill the 8th spot. Am I reading that right, Brock? Does that sound right?
Yeah, it's just a standard age.
Right, but like that asymmetrical cut just fills the 8th seed, right? It doesn't take 7th through 1st spots.
No, they take 7.
What do you mean?
So like typically, so like last year we had an asymmetrical cut also. So last year 7, 10, so we had 7 through 10 had to play. So 7 had to play 10 for the 7 slot.
But
And
was
8 and 9 had
was
to play
7th
for the
and
8
10th
slot.
tied?
No. 7 was technically guaranteed.
What do you mean technically guaranteed? Were they tied on match points, or do you remember?
No. They had
That's
one
dumb,
more
then.
match point than
I don't
the
like that.
8th, 9th, and 10th.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
seems weird.
But
But
like that's where all the Twitter discourse began.
because I get what they're saying now, because then there wouldn't be an
You
even
can't do a
number. You
round
couldn't do a
robin.
round
Like, that's
robin
the-
for it,
yes.
right? It wouldn't be an even number.
No.
I don't like that, but it's still, I think it's overall better because we've seen it multiple times this season where the guy in 9th is identical to the guy in 8th and they just get nothing. They're just not in it. They're just not involved. And so I think they're just trying to avoid that with this Worlds. I don't think that's going to be a thing for regionals going forward. They haven't announced that yet. It's just a prediction of mine. I don't think they're going to do that going forward. If they do, though, it's super cool. But the kicker is, and this might be only for Worlds, they do go to 8 rounds day 1, 5 rounds day 2, or is it 4? I'll look it up real fast. I think it's only 4. Either way, compared to the 6 rounds we have now, I feel like the 6 rounds changes more of that cut than just playing 4.
So with the amount of people that they would have, they would only do 5 rounds. They wouldn't do the 6. 6 doesn't get included until 13 or 12. Because at my first day 2, we had 1,100 players, and we only had 5 rounds day 2.
Yes. Total format structure. Yeah, it's actually no, it's 4. It is 4. I just pulled up on the website.
4,
It's
yes.
yep, 8 rounds day 1, 4 rounds day 2. Match point threshold would be 18, so the tie would be gone. You need to go 6 and 3 to make it, or no, that's not even a record. You have to go 6 and 2.
It's 6 and 2. Yeah, you can technically go 503 also.
You could go 503, and then I'm trying to find.
And also, like once you
cut.
once you win 6 rounds, you get dropped from the tournament. Like you just move on. You don't even play anymore.
Really, that's like confirmed.
Yep. Well, that's how it's always been. Like the 18 points has been around for like the past 5 or 6 worlds.
Really?
Like once you get 18 points, they drop you from the tournament.
This is
qualified for day 2.
This is what I get for coming back to the game so late. But yeah, that makes sense. I do remember something about that happening last year, where like, oh hey, I got my wins. I'm in day 2. Like they're not going to pair me for the next round because everyone restarts, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so everyone restarts going into day 2.
That makes sense. So Worlds is super exciting. Cups and challenges come back in July where we compete to qualify for the 2025 Worlds. The meta is wide open. Like it just feels like everything's on the table, except for a few decks now. And hopefully this means prices will drop because we'll have a whole new set and format for Worlds, which is like August 16th. And then hopefully we get our regional schedule announced here sometime in July. That'd be super nice. And I know you are trying to go pretty crazy this year with it. I'm hoping so. I'm definitely getting my local count up. That's for sure.
Yeah, we're gonna try to go to most of the regionals, and then we're definitely going to EUIC. My group is going to EUIC for sure.
Yeah, that'll be. I'm for sure not in that one. I'm definitely not even going to attempt to even consider the thought of me going to UIC. NAIC though, and maybe more than one regional, we'll see. Pending wife approval, pending new job approval, and all that good stuff. But it's going to be exciting. I love it. I can't wait to get back to playing cups and challenges on Saturdays. And I can't wait to just keep playing Pokemon. It was an absolute blast of a weekend. If you haven't been to an IC or haven't been to a regional, it is well worth your time because it just makes everything so tangible, right? Especially if you're just watching it on a stream or just hanging out at home and watching it. Like, it's just like, oh, hey, they're just playing Pokemon cards. It's kind of like a local. Like, no, man, the scale of these events is so big now. It's crazy. Like, one of the highlights for my weekend, too, is the Unite finals on Saturday. That was crazy. I've been playing Unite every second I can since I've been home. It's an absolute blast of a game. I love Unite. Definitely not going to try to qualify for that. But, like, Unite's insane. Definitely not going to play the video game. That's not me. But Pokemon through and through, for sure. Any closing thoughts to wrap up this pod, Broad? Broad?
No.
Did I just say that? Any last thoughts to wrap up this pod, Brock?
Off to the new season.
Off to the new season. Thank you so much to everyone that came up and said hi, all of the Discord friends that I met this weekend that have never met me in person before. That was super cool. Nothing but welcoming and loving. There's so many of you that I didn't even realize that were in the loop with this, and it blows my mind. I think Brock had more of an idea than I did. But thank you for being a part of this. Like, this is a blast for both of us, and means a lot that you guys watch and listen and are still here 9 episodes in, which is crazy. I can't wait for more events. Like as Brock said, we're on to the next season, and we'll see you guys next week. Damn, bro, I was waiting for your peace, dude. Where's your peace? You gotta say peace.
Peace.
There it is. All right, now we can close the episode. Jeez, man, what are we doing here? You're not that tired. You got in on Monday.